Hey, have you heard anything interesting in the finance world recently? I'm sure you're probably wondering how all of this insanity is going to affect first-time homebuyers. So let's get right into how the stock market mayhem affects you. Play the music.
How to Buy a Home educates, protects, and connects first-time homebuyers to qualified vetted realtors in their area. Whether you're looking for DIY information or step-by-step guidance, How to Buy a Home is the #1 resource for first-time homebuyers.
What is up, my How to Buy homies? I am your host, David Sidoni, and today I'm going to be your, financial translator? I'm sure your head is spinning as you watch the stock market bounce around 5,000 points. 5,000 points! Including a 12% drop. But even if you don't have any money in the stock market, I know that everybody looks to the stock market to see how the economy is doing. So how does this craziness affect mortgage rates, home prices? And does this mean it's a good or a bad time to buy your first home? I'm going to break it all down for you. So if you're new to the podcast, this is the weekly current event episode that I do. But if you're here looking for some clarity on the entire first-time home buying process, you want to start at the 10 basic steps that every first-time buyer has to know. Starts at episode 301. Go there, newbies. And if you've done that, you're looking for more inspiration, motivation, or some actual real-world tips from real-life people just like you who finally ended their renting rut and did what they did not think was possible, well, then you can scroll through and look for the interviews. That's where we talk to real-life homeowners and get their story. And each listener's story, it gets into the details of the process, so they're filled with great tips. And back in the library of episodes, there's all the real estate terms and definitions that you could ever need. I'm talking A to Z, and that starts at episode 94. Or you can scroll down and check out the titles. Look for topics where you think, you know what, I need some more expertise to increase my personal confidence in this thing or that thing. It's all there. And as always, if you got a question, something specific just for you, you can go to howtobuyahome.com, and that's where you can hit Ask David, and then I'll help you find the information that you're looking for. It's all there. Everything you need to know on the website. It's all free. It's what we do. We build you up, we educate you, and we give you information. And speaking of information, what are you supposed to do with the crazy information you got this week about the economic news? Well, last week, by the time you hear this, it's got to feel like a fever dream for the people over at Bloomberg and CNBC and all the financial places. And it comes down to that one word, tariffs. All right, first-time homebuyers, I understand you're just as confused as everyone else, so let's break it down. So first there was the tariff announcement, and then there was the tariff pause, and it created one of the biggest swings in stock market history. And of course, that's going to affect the economy, the bond market, and the housing market. But I know you're wondering, how exactly, David? All right, here's what happened. Trump has long been proposing tariffs on a number of goods, including automobiles, electronics, clothing, liquor, and more. On April 2nd, Trump boldly announced that the tariffs were going to begin 1 week later on April 9th, and they'd vary with each country, including an island territory that was only inhabited by penguins. So maybe this whole thing wasn't all the way worked out. Regardless, it happened, and boy, did it change some things. After the shocking tariff announcement on the 2nd, our trading partner countries responded. They either asked for a delay or they retaliated and implemented their own tariffs on the U.S. Well, that shock, that extended to the stock market as well, which completely tanked, and it just kept on tanking. And so the day the tariffs were supposed to start, well, that's when the panic really peaked. So the day the tariffs were supposed to hit, Trump said, just kidding, everyone, not for 90 days. Hit pause. Yeah, really happened. And that was because there was massive political pressure from both parties. There was freak out from economists and panic from the American public who was watching their 401ks lose all their value. So as of Tuesday the 15th, the day I'm recording this, we're supposedly right now negotiating better deals during this 90-day pause period so that our American economy can flourish. But we've already seen that there's some exemptions to the tariffs that are going to be coming because we realized, oh crap, this isn't going to work for our electronics. I saw a story that said that there was a price estimate of an American-made iPhone that would cost $3,500. Okay, so what's going to happen in the next 90 days? What does this mean for both the economy, the housing markets, and you, the first-time home buyer? Well, tariffs could create things like this in housing. Number one, construction price increases. That means the new builds. This could mean an average cost of construction increasing based on the cost of the materials that we actually import from other countries. We already know that we get a big portion, like 70% of our lumber, and also the materials for making drywalls, that comes from Canada and Mexico. So the thought is that the tariffs are going to increase the prices, and that's going to be passed on to the consumer and then built into the price of the home. And then that's going to affect you, the home buyer, when the new homes cost more. And also during this period where we're trying to figure everything out, if the construction slows down because the goods are caught in the tariff gridlock while they're figuring everything out, well, that's going to affect the already nationwide low inventory issue. And that, my homies, is the only thing that is truly going to affect first-time home buyers for the next couple of years. Your ability to buy a home in what they're calling a housing affordability crisis, that's connected mainly to two things: your interest rates and the home prices. And the prices are affected by supply and demand. That means the prices are going to keep going up slowly over the next couple of years, even through this stock market bedlam. And that's all because of one thing. Say it with me now, people. Low inventory. Because that's the thing that affects housing, low inventory. All right, so the tariffs are going to bum up stock market investors, sure. But it also looks like it might make home construction more expensive. And that could hit the every person, not just the Wall Street fat cats and the boomers watching their retirement accounts. This could be making it harder for the little guy and the gal, the non-specific gender people, to buy a home, since we already have low inventory, and now maybe it'll get even lower while they're trying to figure out how to do this whole thing with the new builds, or just get more expensive. The second thing with the tariffs, well, the stock market. If we have continued stock decline, that means asset loss for some people who have their money in the market, which will constrain their down payment options. You see, 1 in 5 people pull from their stock portfolio for the down payment on their home purchase. So there it is, folks, 20% of the buyers. This could be a big deal. Now, if you're there and you're one of those people that's part of that 20%, you do still have options that we've discussed in tons of episodes in the back catalog of the podcast, where we talk about low down payment options. There are 0 down payment options, 3% conventional loans, 3.5% FHA loans, and 5% and 10% conventionals. And if you're concerned about the PMI with an under 20% loan, well, then check episodes 198, PMI is a privilege, and episode 216, PMI is still a privilege and still not the devil. And make sure that while you're doing all this, you're keeping your credit score up, because the higher the credit score, the lower the PMI payment. Not to mention, a great credit score is going to give you the best and the cheapest of all the loan down payment options. Number 3, what about a recession? You know, stock market's tanking, so crap, maybe there's a recession coming. We're starting to hear it on all of the news networks. Well, since the 1980s, there have been 6 recessions, and housing has only crashed in one of those recessions back in 2008, and that crash was actually caused by the housing market. And as a result of that, they actually created regulations which are now in place to keep that kind of crash from ever happening again. And because of the ginormous inventory shortage that we have right now, combined with the historic pent-up demand of buyers, 1 million, 2 million homes could come on the market tomorrow, and it still wouldn't be enough supply to crash the market. Yeah, we usually sell between 5 and 6 million homes. In the last 2 years, we've only sold 4 million. That means bidding wars, multiple buyers, they're happening everywhere. So the data and the math is on your side when it comes to a recession. The historical statistical data, that's in your favor. Most of the time, not only does the housing market survive, but it goes up in a recession. And in those same last 6 recessions, mortgage rates dropped every single time. So if you're rooting the stock market to tank again so you can finally afford a home, I understand why people think that. Back when I started doing all this, the millennials were screaming for everything to tank so that they could afford a home. And they were, ragging on the boomers saying, you bought a home for 16 cents. So I want to make sure you get the real information. If you look at the historical data, it shows that, yes, mortgage rates may drop, but prices might not, especially we combine that with a low inventory. Did I mention low inventory? Oh, good. Now, one of the things that everyone was really paying attention to, and they're still going to be paying attention to in this tariff stock market bedoubling that's going on, the Fed interest rate. According to FedWatch, the leading forecaster of the Fed Reserve interest rate, well, the predictions jumped up to 80.9% that there's a chance that there's going to be a rate cut of the Fed rate in June. And economists think that might be the first of multiple cuts in 2025 as we deal with all this, anywhere from 2 to 4 cuts for the rest of the year. Now, I want to remind you the Fed rate is not in direct correlation with the mortgage interest rates. The better indicator is the 10-year Treasury bond rate or the yield, but even the bond market's been turned upside down during these nutso stock market things that have been going on. So I'll tell you what, you let me watch the Fed rate and the wacky bond market and get you the real-time impacts in case it does anything to mortgage rates. Because for now, in this tariff, on again, off again, April mayhem that we've gone through, mortgage rates, they just kind of bounced around from 6.7% to 7.1%. So really, nothing too big. No change to make people jump into buying a home. That change, it's only a difference of a few $100s a month for the average American home purchase. And today, April 15th, rates are at 6.88% on a national average, which also happens to be right where we were before the tariffs were announced. So much ado about nothing, gang. But with all this uncertainty in the air, here's what the experts are predicting for interest rates in the future. The MBA, the Mortgage Banker Association, they forecast rates in the mid-6s next year. Fannie Mae has a little brighter forecast. They think 6.3 by the end of 2025 and 6.2 will be the average in 2026. And once again, you add that to where we are today and you're looking at a decrease of a few $100s off of your monthly payment. So if the stock market shenanigans made you slow down your first-time home buying planning, the reality is that it's barely affecting the factors that should be predicating your decision. By waiting to start your plan, all you're doing is adding a few extra months of paying rent to your landlord and delaying the start of your financial independence. The educated home buyer knows this. The informed and confident buyer knows this. Because if rates drop suddenly and they do land in the low 6s, the buyers that are sitting on the sidelines, they're going to come out in droves. And that means they're going to drive prices up since the demand of buyers is going to outweigh the supply of homes for sale at an even larger margin than it's sitting at right now. So here's the best thing you can do with all of this craziness. Use the public panic to your advantage. You know more than most people do. Yeah, you do. And if you don't think you do, listen to this and then you will. You know that due to the low inventory, even in this bonkers 2025 economy, there are more buyers than sellers. Fact. You know that the median home price is increasing all across the country. Fact. You know that in some regions like Philadelphia, the February and March numbers are out and pending home sales, the homes that are under contract, they're up 41% from last year. Fact. And you know that even in the worst case scenario, a recession, home prices are likely going to remain strong and steadily climb, not only because of the historical data that we looked at, but because at this current time in our housing history, supply and demand is so skewed that we have a giant backlog of buyers who are just waiting to buy when the supply comes out. And we also know that if the recession drops the mortgage rates, well, then those pent-up buyers, they're going to flood the market and create even more bidding wars because of, say it with me now, everybody, low inventory. Fact. And here's something cool. You also know that everything that's happening right now, it's actually creating areas of opportunities that you can take advantage of. While the general public is cowering in fear, you could take your knowledge and get yourself a better deal. You know that some builders are offering 4.99, even 3.99% interest rates fixed for 30 years because they're freaking out over the tariffs and they need to make sure they sell their inventory. Fact. You also know that in some areas, due to insurance and HOA drama, 2/3 of condos are selling below list prices. Fact. And you know that in those areas where the sellers are selling below the list price, you can use this cool market factor to get the seller to give you a credit. And then you can use a $5,000 or $10,000 credit to buy down your mortgage interest rate. And that buy down could reduce your rate in your first year to as low as 3.88%. Fact. And you know that if you listen to episode 326, you can learn all about taking advantage of the little-known assumable mortgage purchase and snatch a home with a 2 to 3% interest rate. Fact. Hell, as a homie, a listener to this podcast, you even know about the tiny town of Pawnee City. Yeah, Parks and Recs fans. I said Pawnee, but this is Pawnee, Nebraska. They're offering a $50,000 down payment aid to attract residents to their town. $50,000. You know that. Fact. All right, well, if you didn't know that before, you know it all now. While some people are fearing a crash and staying put, you know that creating a rent replacement strategy is your best course of action. You know the reality of what's happening now is that low inventory is all you got to worry about. That's the thing that is the driver of current home prices. And that's not going to change anytime soon because they would have to start building a bajillion homes because we're 4 to 7 million homes short. And that started way back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And we still haven't caught up. Oh, and you also know where to start right here. If you're a newbie, episode 301 to 310 for the 10 steps. Or if you've got a really specific question, if you're like, all right, dude, I hear you, let's go. Go to howtobuyahome.com and hit the Ask David or the Find Me a Unicorn button. And then you can start planning while others are out there worrying. And they're worrying so much, they keep paying rent and they look back and they realize that, oh my gosh, over the last 4 years, I've spent well over $100,000 on rent. And if I just asked the question, maybe I could have bought a home. Now you know. Yes, you do. You know. And I know you can do this.
Looking for more DIY education or your own personal step-by-step guidance through the home buying journey? Since 2019, How to Buy a Home has been the #1 resource for first-time home buyers. So visit howtobuyahome.com to get started.